Can you believe this? The Elder Scrolls 6 situation is somehow getting worse. Now, I personally obviously cannot believe it. Like, Bethesda is such a great company that does everything right. I mean, they have Todd Howard, Emil Pagolarino, and a bunch of other people that are absolutely amazing at their jobs and whatnot. How could it ever possibly be conceivable that Elder Scrolls 6 would be in a bad situation? And Fallout 5 obviously probably also. And Bethesda also is probably in a bad situation. How is this possible? Man. If only I saw it coming. If only I had the foresight. If only it wasn't written on the walls of my insane asylum.
Well, just when you thought the news about Elder Scrolls 6 was bad enough, as in no one in his right mind thinks it's going to be a good game, it's gotten even worse. And by that I mean, recently there was a PC Gamer article released in which an interview was featured.
Oh boy, PC Gamer. PC Gamer is amazing, okay? That is the site that unironically tells you Diablo 4 is a better game than Path of Exile because of the drip. Yes. And other stuff that no one cares about.
With the former lore master Kurt Kuhlmann of Elder Scrolls, who worked at Bethesda for over 20 years. He was the co-lead designer on Skyrim, and he goes way back to the earliest iterations of the Elder Scrolls, starting in 1996. And it's a big doozy, I have to say. Essentially, in a nutshell, and we'll go into some of the details, this guy was promised the lead position of the game of Elder Scrolls 6 by Todd Howard, and then, well, they changed their mind, and then he left. So, a couple of key points here.
Oh, we know this one. I mean, this one is pretty bad, honestly. So you have a guy who has all the credentials. He got promised it, and then for some reason, this guy who actually has the capability, knowledge, skill, leadership, and everything else is not allowed to do it. It can only be for one reason, because everything nowadays is, political pandering in these giant game companies. So the only reason why he was not allowed is probably because he would have not made a woke enough game. That is the reality. That is why this probably didn't happen.
Elder Scrolls as a franchise emerged in a studio that was much more homely, much smaller, much more intimate. And that allowed, and I've stated this before in previous videos, the ability to brainstorm. If you had an idea, if you needed help with something, you would literally walk across the room, maybe into the other room, and ask the guy, how do I do this? What do you think about this idea? But as Bethesda has grown and grown, the problems of management, the inability to manage large teams, have been amplified to the point of, well, we saw what happened in Starfield, which was a perfect example of mismanagement and a consequence of excessive growth without the ability to properly regulate that growth. And this guy, Kurt Kuhlmann, was at Bethesda for a very long time, and his dream, essentially, I guess, or his ambition was to lead the project instead of Todd Howard.
Todd Howard also had a dream. It was called Starfield, and now he regrets his dream, which is probably one of the funniest things, honestly, I have ever heard in my life.
Of Elder Scrolls 6. Do all the lore. He had his own ideas. He had all kinds of things. So, for example, he had a vision of Elder Scrolls 6, which entailed something along the lines of Empire Strikes Back, as in Star Wars, where the Thalmor have gotten the upper hand, and you're kind of an underdog. That was the idea. Of course, that's not going to be the case anymore because he's not working on the project. And he also added that he does not think that the idea of an underdog as opposed to a chosen one is something that will ever pass merit in terms of the corporate powers that now govern Bethesda. So I just don't think it's going to happen. He doesn't think it's going to happen.
I think, by the way, this is a great example of how absolutely insane the games industry has gotten and how subjugated they are to some principles that absolutely make no sense. For example, yeah, Bethesda games all are pretty much being about the chosen one. Even Fallout technically is about being the chosen one, even though you're not in a, fated way a chosen one, how you are in the Elder Scrolls games, but you're still the chosen one. But you're chosen by people to do this magical big thing. And it is strange because I don't know about you, but I have never played a single Bethesda game and I thought, oh boy, I am the chosen one. It never felt like that. And the fact that Bethesda is unironically unwilling to leave the chosen thing behind, that you always need to be this like hero above heroes, the chosen one to lead everything. You know, champion. That as the champion of Azeroth and the hero of, like, effectively the World of Warcraft retail spiel, where you're instantaneously the champion of everything. I mean, even in Starfield, the expansion of Shattered Space, you become the chosen one in that expansion in the first 50 seconds when you land on them, when you meet House Varun. You literally become the chosen one in less than a minute. Bethesda is completely incapable to, do anything but the chosen thing. And it's really strange considering at the early stages of when people started to hate World of Warcraft lore, everyone was mentioning the chosen thing. That it's always you're the chosen one and things like that. You're no longer just the guy who is, doing things for the good reasons and whatnot. Now you're the chosen one, so you must do this, which is kind of lame.
So this guy was working at Bethesda for decades, and he was told literally that he would be the lead designer on Elder Scrolls 6. And then he even worked on some other projects, including Fallout 76 and Starfield. But Elder Scrolls 6, which was his baby, kept on getting delayed. And after about 11 years of waiting, he just gave up, he quit, and he moved on to a different studio to take a lead role. And he left in 2023. Now, he was not asked about what he thought about Starfield, but I think you can kind of read the room temperature, even in an article. He has some ideas, there's no doubt. And this is really, really damning of whatever Elder Scrolls 6 turns out to be. Because, as I said, it's obvious at this stage that this is going to be a largely crappy product. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be maybe something like Starfield, which was just mediocre at best, mid, as people like to say these days.
Mid. If you're calling Starfield mid, honestly, you're still extremely wrong.
But it's hard to get excited about a game that takes nearly 20 years to develop. And then some of the key people, it's not just this guy. Nate Perkapile, for example, I mentioned him. He left as well. He was one of the key guys back in the day. Will Shen is another one, for example, who used to be there and has moved on to other projects. So a lot of these key people have left, but this guy who, like I said, had been there for decades, was essentially the lore guy. He created the lore by and large. He knows everything about the lore. He was slated to be...
And he's no longer there, and this is why the lore is now just extremely bland and bad, because Emil took over.
The head of Elder Scrolls 6. And if that had happened, I think we could also have a bit more hope for that project. But Mr. Kuhlmann is not there anymore. So there probably is a bit of bad blood there as well. I mean...
Now, unironically, you know my opinion. If you have worked in Bethesda for 20 years, okay, this guy probably would not have made a great game. Even if he was different, even if he was there at the start of the good things, so was Todd Howard. Todd Howard, ironically, at one point in life, was not this, game-ruining loser. But now he is. And I think that has happened to everyone who works at Bethesda who has been there for 20 years. That all of them are pretty much just lost in the sauce. And there's no future for them. So, would have this guy made a better game than, well, the typical Bethesda employee? Probably. But would have it actually been good? No. No. Just no. Probably not. He has been most likely also infected by everything wrong with modern day Bethesda.
When the Elder Scrolls lore master is denied the position he was promised, and they have to have a quote-unquote difficult discussion about it, and he's given some kind of second-rate position instead, it makes sense that he wants to leave. But, as I said, this is just part and parcel of the problem with Bethesda growing ever larger. And also, this is about God Howard. Now, as much as we meme on God Howard and what have you, technically, according to his colleagues, he's actually pretty good at what he does. His direct quote from the article from Kuhlmann himself: Todd's a very good project lead, and fundamentally, I think he's a designer at heart, and he's good at it, obviously. if you look back at the games, Kuhlmann says. But over time, as he's gotten busier and every part of this larger and larger organization wanted him to do stuff for their project, he would get pulled away. Howard made good decisions, Kuhlmann says, so when he wasn't around, games suffered. Sometimes choices made in Howard's absence needed undoing later. The way decisions were made wasn't the only problem for Kuhlmann. As Bethesda grew, senior developers became more managerial and less hands-on. Again, this is the same problem I've talked about again and again, and it bears repeating. This is the problem and the death knell of virtually every studio. You get too big, okay, then you have a problem because you have to manage the size, you have to manage the hundreds of employees, and you have to, above all, manage the communication. It seems to me, as a layperson, as a consumer, as a person who buys video games and plays them, it's just a much better idea to have maybe 100, maybe 150 developers tops that you can all work with, that you can talk to on a one-to-one basis to operate in the same building at least, rather than these gigantic organizations where people, frankly speaking, get lost. And as a result, they have no idea what's going on. And you end up with these wonky decisions. I pointed this out before. I played Starfield for about 50 hours. I remember entering a space bar.
Oh, playing Starfield for 50 hours. That is commitment. I played it for 8 and was disappointed.
And in the space bar,
I forced myself.
Same model of woman that was
I ironically did not enjoy Starfield in the first 2 minutes of the game.
replicated and repeated 7 times. She was sitting across from herself at the bar, across the room. It was the same woman. Now, that's obviously a bug, I should hope at least, or something that people just didn't pick up on, but it's a fundamental element of this problem. Who is going to manage these gigantic teams? And now, without the lore master, the guy, the OG of Elder Scrolls lore, what is the game going to look like? How is the writing going to be? I mean, the great writer Emil...
Well, Elder Scrolls... Okay, maybe Morrowind was good lore. But, for example, Skyrim was terrible lore. It's so fucking dull and boring. Big giant evil dragon. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not theoretically bad, but it's like it's just bland. Oh, evil dragon for some reason wants to kill everyone. Wow. Oh wow, we need to stop him. Oh wow.
Pagliarulo is still there, who, if you remember, has chided and chastised gamers for complaining about the quality of Starfield's writing and story.
True.
Basically talking down to them, telling them that they don't know what they're talking about, using the famous quip that if you don't know how the game is made, you have no right to criticize it. Again, that's kind of retarded. It's stupid, as in...
Taste the meal. trying to shame people into submission.
You don't need to know how you make a particular dish at a restaurant to know that it tastes bad. You don't need to know how to fix a car to know that it doesn't work. This is just childish on his part. But yeah, that's the situation right now. This could be the final nail in the coffin. I mean, the nail had already been hammered in around 2023. There's no question about that. But now...
Yeah, Starfield has completely destroyed Bethesda's future and everything. People really started en masse distrusting Bethesda about any choice after seeing Starfield.
Now it's coming to light, and now we know just how utterly cooked.
If you ask people why are you worried about Elder Scrolls 6, their answer is not going to be necessarily because Bethesda's bad or whatever. Primarily, the answer of the most people are going to give, because I have seen this so many times in my comment section. I wouldn't be surprised if some guys got this spot into video and he's like, oh wow, I just commented about that, because I have seen these comments so many times. People are not worried about Elder Scrolls 6 because Bethesda necessity because of Bethesda or Todd. They're worried because they saw what Starfield was, and that the same people are making now Elder Scrolls 6, and what Starfield's expansion was, and how they did not even try to fix anything, how they doubled down and said that everyone who thinks that they did anything wrong are the bad ones, and that they don't understand something. People think Elder Scrolls 6 is gonna be garbage because of Starfield in particular. Not necessarily because of Bethesda's actions.
Elder Scrolls 6 is, and I honestly didn't think it could get any worse. I will be shocked, floored. I will, I don't know, become religious and pray to Jesus maybe, if Elder Scrolls 6 turns out to be an above average game, even a good game, dare I say. It's not going to be great. I think it's impossible. And then you also have to think about the competition that's going to be coming out in the next couple of years. Witcher 4, whatever you think about the decisions revolving around Ciri, it's weird, yes. I've given my
People are gonna buy Elder Scrolls 6 and Witcher 4 no matter how bad it is. The only real question about those games is how fast people are gonna abandon them, and what kind of negative reception these games are gonna see. That is the only two real questions about these two things.
take a million times. It's going to be a much more impressive open world game than Bethesda could ever cook up. And then you have games like Crimson Desert, which again is going to be open world made by a Korean developer, and it looks very impressive for what it is. And people are going to line up
Yep, Crimson Desert, I saw it. It looks very ambitious, but it does look like something that could potentially happen.
those games and compare them and think, wow, Elder Scrolls 6 really looks pretty bad compared to Witcher 4 or Crimson Desert. I wonder why. So I will be floored. I will pray to Jesus. I will become religious if it turns out to be good. But I'm not banking on that. Prepare for the worst.
No one is banking on that. Anyway, that was Spill and Shield 10 out of 10. Bye!